When I first opened my eyes, the world was a dull, sterile white, and my head throbbed with a persistent low hum of pain. A group of people formed a semicircle around my hospital bed, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. The one standing furthest away was a stranger, a tall man with a severe expression and an air of cold detachment that seemed to suck the warmth from the room. Beside him stood a girl whose features were so delicate, she looked like she was carved from porcelain, her eyes wide and liquid. The others, however, were familiar faces, my childhood friends, and they all leaned in closer the moment they saw my eyes flutter open. "Ilara, how are you feeling?" Leo asked, his voice gentle as he handed me a plastic cup of water. I took it gratefully, my throat feeling like sandpaper, and drank most of it in one go. "Not too bad," I managed to say, my own voice sounding foreign. "My head just really hurts. What happened to me?" Before anyone could answer, the cold stranger at the back of the room let out a disdainful snort. What's wrong with her? How can she be so childish at her age? Going out and getting that drunk in the middle of the night, doesn't she have any sense of self-preservation? "Do you have a heart?" Leo suddenly shot forward, his body tense with anger, only to be held back by our other friends. "Ilara drank that much because of you." I stared at the scene, my mind a complete blank. A storm of questions brewed inside me, but the most pressing one came out first. "Who is this guy?" I asked, gesturing weakly toward the stranger. "The one with the incredibly nasty mouth?" The entire room fell into a heavy, dead silence. "Ilara, what game are you playing now?" the man said, his brow furrowed as he stared at me, his eyes trying to dissect my expression for any hint of deceit. "Are you trying to get my attention this way?" I rolled my eyes so hard it made my headache worse. This guy clearly spent too much time reading bad romance novels. "Get your attention. I honestly don't have a clue who you are. Are you here to collect a debt or something?" The man was momentarily rendered speechless, and the delicate girl next to him looked at me with a thoughtful, almost calculating expression. My friends exchanged worried glances. Leo gently placed the back of his hand on my forehead before turning and quickly walking out of the room. Ben, ever the joker, waved his hand in front of my face, holding up 2 fingers. "How many fingers am I holding up?" he asked. I impatiently swatted his hand away and glared at him. "That's 2. My name is Ilara, and you're Ben. I used to chase you around when we were kids, forcing you into dresses and putting your hair in pigtails." "Ilara, I'm warning you," Ben grumbled, his face flushing slightly. "Stop bringing up those old childhood stories all the time." Just then, Leo returned with the doctor in tow. They ushered me away for a series of detailed examinations. After what felt like hours of tests, scans, and answering questions I didn't know the answers to, the doctor finally delivered his diagnosis. He called it selective amnesia. Due to a significant emotional shock combined with a physical impact to the head, it's possible your brain has triggered a self-protection mechanism, he explained calmly. It's temporarily erasing experiences that were particularly painful or traumatic. Later, back in the room, Ben explained that the man with the nasty attitude was named Julian, and the girl was Clara. "When will her memory come back?" Julian asked the doctor, breaking his long silence. His voice was strained. "There's no guarantee," the doctor replied. "It could be a month, it could be 3, it could be a year or 2. In some cases, the memories never return at all." Julian pressed his lips into a thin, hard line and looked over at me, his expression a complicated mess of emotions I couldn't begin to decipher. He looked like he was about to say something, but Clara's soft coughing interrupted him. "Ilara, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breathy. "If it weren't for me coming back so suddenly, should I ask Julian to spend more time with you in the future? To help you remember?" Her coughing grew more pronounced, and Julian immediately took off his expensive-looking coat and draped it carefully over her shoulders, his face etched with pain and concern. "Clara, it's not your fault. You're already putting yourself through so much just by being here, especially with your poor health." A wave of nausea washed over me. "Are you two performing some kind of tragic romance drama for my benefit? Did I invite you here?" I looked directly at Julian. "Julian, was it? I've racked my brain and I can't recall ever knowing someone like you." "However," I added, I did take what the doctor said about painful experiences to heart. I appreciate the kind offer, but he said that whatever I've forgotten is probably something bad for me. Having you around trying to jog my memory probably won't bring me any joy. I finished with a dismissive wave of my hand, shooing them away. Julian looked genuinely furious, his face darkening. Good, he said coldly. Then I don't have to worry about picking up someone's endless, frantic calls in the middle of the night anymore. I just shrugged. Sounds fine by me. Over the next few days, I spent time with my old friends and pored over my old chat logs and diaries, specifically the ones that mentioned Julian. It was through these entries that I began to piece together a clearer, if not entirely flattering picture of him. Apparently, Julian's family had moved into the large villa next to ours when I was 15. According to my own starstruck writing, I fell for him at first sight, which marked the beginning of a 10-year-long journey of unrequited love. The diary was filled with endless accounts of my devotion. Julian liked a specific brand of soup dumplings, so I would get up at the crack of dawn, regardless of the weather, to stand in line and buy them for him almost every single day. When Julian injured his knee playing basketball, I had cried my eyes out and immediately started learning how to make restorative bone broth. In my haste, I slipped in the kitchen and ended up injuring my own knee. When he went abroad for a training camp, I bought a plane ticket right after him, not daring to actually bother him, but just watching him from a distance, before flying back the very next day to attend my classes. One night, Julian got into a dispute at a bar, and I, dressed in a little white dress, had apparently stood in front of him and taken a punch meant for him, the blood blossoming across the pristine fabric. My old self had written that if you ever wanted to find me, the first person you should ask was Julian. Julian, who was born into a wealthy family and blessed with conventionally good looks, had a revolving door of girlfriends, but I was never one of them. I couldn't understand it reading the entries now. I was, by all accounts, a head-turner myself. Why couldn't I ever make it out of his friend zone, or what my diary pathetically called his pond? The diary mentioned that Julian, with a mysterious and profound air, had once told me, "Those girls, they insist on liking me. What can I do about it?" "Well, I like you too," I had apparently responded. Liking someone doesn't mean you have to be together. But isn't being together the best possible outcome of love? My fingers traced the words on the page, and I sank into a deep reflection, completely baffled by my past self. I nudged Leo, who was sitting beside me on the sofa. Why did I like Julian so much? With that absolutely terrible temper? Leo, caught off guard by my question, looked quite perplexed. I scrutinized his face, noticing for the first time how his handsome profile seemed to glow faintly under the lamplight, and how his eyes were so captivatingly clear. "You know," I said thoughtfully, "I think you're much more handsome than Julian." Just as I said it, a noise came from the front door. I looked up to see Julian and Clara walking in. Julian was watching me with a smug half-smile. "Really?" he said. I shot him a glare and pointedly ignored him. If I had known he and Clara were coming over to Ben's for his birthday gathering, I never would have agreed to come. I harshly slapped the arm of Ben, who was busy putting candles on his own cake. He glanced towards the door and quickly understood my annoyance. "Come on, guys, it's my birthday," he said, playing peacemaker. "We're all friends here, right?" Hearing his words, my heart softened a little. After all, we had all been friends for a decade. There was no need to be so openly hostile. Clara walked over quickly and sat down right next to me. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, feeling incredibly awkward. She was a total stranger to me, someone I only knew bits and pieces about from reading Julian's name in my diary. One entry described a time Julian had a very high fever. I had taken care of him, running around all day to make sure he was comfortable. As I was placing a cool fever patch on his forehead, Julian had grabbed my hand tightly, his brows furrowed in a pained sleep, and murmured, "Clara! Clara, why did you leave? Come back, please." My diary entry said that in that moment, it felt like my heart had plummeted from a great height, a heavy, painful sensation filled with an inexplicable panic. From that day on, the name Clara was like a ticking time bomb buried deep in my heart. Reading through the diary, I felt like I was reliving my entire youth, a youth filled with vague and cruel memories that floated in and out of my consciousness. I had a faint, unsettling sense of how this relationship was destined to end. Yet my past self was still gambling, still hoping. Maybe she wouldn't come back? Using Ben's birthday as an excuse, Julian formally introduced Clara to everyone. He picked up a karaoke microphone and looked at her with a soft expression. I lost the bet, everyone. Clara is a little sister I knew a long time ago. She went abroad and just recently came back. I hope you'll all think of her as a new friend. He said it so casually. I was a bit surprised. Was that it? Just that simple introduction? I thought he was going to officially announce they were in a relationship, or maybe even kiss her. Clara's face fell for a fraction of a second, but she quickly turned it into a bright smile when she noticed me watching her. She's just my sister, she sang along to the music, echoing Ben, who was now dramatically singing a cheesy love song. I couldn't help but laugh. Ben, encouraged, went on even more. Julian, bringing in a sister all of a sudden like this? You're going to make Alara jealous. Julian shot me a quick glance past Clara. Hasn't she been jealous enough over the years? He wasn't wrong. I had raised hell and cried countless times over his previous flings. But Julian always managed to sweet-talk me in the end. I never actually got with any of them, he'd say, his voice a low, charming murmur. Just a few boring dinners and movies. You see, Alara, only you can really get to me. His annoyance felt almost like a pout, and that was somehow always enough for me to forgive him. Reading about it now, I was horrified. Since meeting Julian, had I really been this pathetic? I couldn't understand it at all. I won't get jealous, I said calmly, picking up my drink. From now on, I'll let Clara handle all of that. Leo immediately snatched the glass from my hand. Have you already forgotten you're on antibiotics? You dare to drink alcohol? I had forgotten. I clutched my chest in fear, grateful that Leo was really looking out for me. Julian's voice dripped with sarcasm from across the room. Better than someone who doesn't appreciate it. Leo just grinned mischievously. And better than someone who doesn't know how to cherish others. The atmosphere at the birthday party was incredibly strange. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore and sneaked out onto the balcony for some fresh air. I heard footsteps follow me, and a moment later, a coat was draped over my shoulders. Thanks, Leo, I started to say, but then I turned around. Oh, it's you. I looked at Julian in surprise. Leo? You think only Leo cares about you? Julian's face had that familiar, annoying look of arrogance. I couldn't figure him out. After a decade of being treated like an afterthought, now he wanted to offer me some small kindness. I'd rather you go and care for your first love, Clara, I said irritably. Julian froze, then spoke after a long moment of silence. You're throwing a tantrum, aren't you? Clara isn't like the others. Yes, she's different, I snapped, my patience wearing thin. I threw his coat back at him, a surge of anger rising as I remembered all the dismissive things I'd read in my own diary. And Julian, listen very closely. I don't care. I wish you both nothing but happiness. Just leave me alone. Julian's face turned cold, his eyes icing over. He silently picked up the coat from the ground and walked away without another word. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed with a message from him. Ilara, I've always loved Clara. To avoid any future complications, it's best if we don't contact each other anymore. Wow. He hadn't even left the building yet. That had to be a Guinness World Record for the fastest change of heart. I promptly blocked his number and deleted his contact information from my phone. For the next month, I did my best to avoid all social gatherings where I might bump into Julian. That night, when I first received his message, my heart had ached with a strange, reflexive pain. It seemed the more I saw him, the more fragmented memories threatened to surface, and I had no desire to endure such a painful love all over again. Since Julian lived right next door, I stayed home most of the time, using the excuse that I was still healing. But unexpectedly, he came to my house. I told our housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, to tell him I wasn't home. Outside, Julian was persistent. Ilara, I've been waiting out here since dawn. I know you're in there. I just want to ask you one question. With a heavy sigh, I opened the door. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes that made his face seem thinner and more angular. Alara, do you really not remember me at all? He asked, his voice desperate. No, I don't remember you, I said flatly. You're just a stranger to me now. You never liked me anyway. Now that Clara's back, everything should be fine. A bitter smile formed on Julian's lips. So that's why you blocked me? You're afraid of remembering me? I couldn't understand him anymore, so I decided to be completely frank. Julian, you acted all concerned for me, and then you sent me a message saying you've always loved Clara and that we shouldn't contact each other. Are you bipolar? Julian frowned, looking genuinely puzzled. No, I didn't send that message. My phone. Just then, the sound of rushed footsteps approached, and Clara appeared, looking panicked. Julian's eyes cleared, his gaze sharpening as he stared at her anxious face. Clara, you? He questioned. Clara glanced at me with open displeasure, then bit her lip and gazed up at Julian with an expression of deep, pained emotion. Julian, I was just scared. 10 years ago, I'd lost you once. I can't bear the thought of losing you again. It finally clicked. Clara had sent that message from Julian's phone. But in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really matter to me because I had been planning to block him anyway. He had treated me just as coldly before. I remembered a diary entry from just after college. I had meticulously planned a beach trip with Julian, and to my surprise, he had agreed to go. I was ecstatic and took charge of planning everything, even asking an upperclassman from that seaside city for some local advice. But Julian had not been happy about it. He had exploded in anger, inexplicably yelling at me, accusing me of being too close with other guys and of not having any self-respect. If you like chatting with strangers so much, maybe I should just delete you and give you more time for them, he had threatened. His words had cut into my heart like a cold knife. I hadn't known what I'd done wrong and could only cry and apologize out of habit. Clara, all right, Julian sighed, his anger deflating. Just don't let it happen again. He walked over to her and, seeing her crying, gently began to wipe her tears away. Had I also once longed for him to be that gentle with me? The thought was disgusting. I sneered, turned around, and was about to close the door when Julian hurriedly caught up and blocked it, a thin layer of anger returning to his face. Alara, you saw what happened. I didn't send the message. Stop throwing a tantrum and add me back on your contacts. He still thought he was right, every single time. He always believed that I was the one making a fuss, that he was the one generously tolerating me, never once considering my feelings. Oh, wait, I forgot. He considers Clara's feelings. Which one of your eyes saw me throwing a tantrum? I said, my voice dangerously calm. Listen to me. I don't remember you, and I don't care if I have your contact info or not. I simply don't want to be in touch with you. Goodbye. I tried to shut the door again, but this time Julian grabbed my hand. A panic I had never seen before flashed in his eyes. No, you will remember me. You're just sick. I talked to the doctor. He said that seeing me more and being reminded of what we've been through will help you recover your memory. Alara, I'm sorry. Clara rushed over, tears rolling down her delicate face. Her voice took on a pleading tone as if she were scolding a child. It's all my fault. I care too much about Julian. Don't blame him. If you're upset, you can take it out on me. Julian is innocent. Please don't be angry with him, okay? Hearing her defense, Julian seemed to regain a bit of his usual cold arrogance. He let go of my hand. I'm just thinking about your illness and trying to help you, and this is the attitude I get. I took the opportunity to slam the door shut. Clara was not as simple and fragile as she appeared. After a moment of thought, I called Leo. Miss Leo, you know a lot of people. Can you help me check up on someone? Sure, Alara. Who? Clara. To avoid running into Julian again, I moved into a small apartment in the city center. A few nights later, Ben sent me a screenshot of Clara's latest social media post. The caption read, "Waiting for someone is a kind of bliss." It was accompanied by a picture of Julian's back as he stared out a window. Looking at the picture, a sharp pain shot through my head. Fragments of memories, disjointed and confusing, flashed through my mind. I shook my head hard, trying to clear them. On pure instinct, I opened my suitcase and pulled out a t-shirt, identical to the one Julian was wearing in the photo. Bits of memory about the shirt began to piece themselves together. Before I lost my memory, I had desperately wanted to wear matching shirts with Julian on my birthday. He had casually said, "All those couple shirts they sell are ugly. If you can design one that's actually good, I'll consider wearing it." To me, that was practically an acknowledgement of our relationship. I was so happy that I completely forgot how incredibly picky Julian could be. When I excitedly showed him my first design, he tore it apart without a moment's hesitation. Determined to finish it before my birthday, I stayed up night after night, barely eating until I was completely exhausted. The dark circles under my eyes grew more and more prominent. To avoid worrying my family, I had to spend extra time every morning trying to cover them with makeup. Finally, I managed to create a design that earned Julian's reluctant approval, but by then, I was completely worn out. Severely sleep deprived and having had a few drinks at my own party, I had accidentally fallen into an open drain on the way home, hit my head, and lost my memory. The memory cut off abruptly. I couldn't help but glance at the screenshot again, and the familiar phantom heartache rose in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I found a pair of scissors and shredded the t-shirt into ribbons. Just then, my phone began to ring incessantly. It was an unknown number. After a moment of hesitation, I answered it. "You answered. Alara, where did you go?" Julian's drunken voice slurred through the phone, the background loud with music and chatter. I didn't speak, but he kept babbling. "Alara, why aren't you talking? Why won't you talk to me anymore, Alara? I'm at our favorite spot, the Starry Night Bar. Ben insists I'm drunk, but there's no way. Alara doesn't like it when I'm drunk. Alara, will you come pick me up, please?" I heard him choke up, his voice cracking like a child whose favorite toy had just been taken away. "But Julian, I'm not a toy. I have a heart too, and it's not invincible." Tilting my head back, I fought back the sudden tears that stung my eyes and was about to hang up when I heard the sound of a phone hitting the ground. "Are you blind? I'm talking to Alara. Why did you knock my phone away?" Julian's voice was suddenly aggressive. "What's your problem, man? You looking for a fight?" Then came the unmistakable sounds of a scuffle, of punches landing. I jumped up from my chair and rushed for the door, but I stopped myself in the hallway, my hand frozen on the doorknob. Leo's call a few minutes later snapped me out of it. "He's all right," he said. "Ben took him to the hospital." He paused for a beat. "Claire's with him." The tears I'd been holding back finally fell, a silent, hot stream down my cheeks, choking my throat. Leo must have heard my distress because his voice turned anxious. "Alara, what's wrong?" "I don't know," I sobbed. "I really don't know. My heart just hurts so much. Why does love have to hurt this bad? Even after forgetting him, the pain is still here. Is my decade of loving him really that worthless?" I squatted down on the floor, my bare feet getting wet from my own tears, which felt warm at first and then chillingly cold. Leo arrived to find me in that forlorn state. He silently knelt down, wiped my tears away with the sleeve of his jacket, and then carried me inside. After finding a pair of socks and gently putting them on my feet, he finally spoke. "You still love him, don't you?" I looked up at him into his beautiful eyes that were now filled with a deep sadness. "I don't." A jumble of disordered footsteps by the door interrupted me. "Alara, Julian, watch out!" It was Julian and Clara's voices. "Alara, open the door." Leo glanced at me, hesitating, unsure if he should open it. I put a finger to my lips and shook my head. Julian continued to ramble incoherently on the other side of the door. "Alara, what's so great about you? What gives you the right to just forget me? Do you think throwing a tantrum is going to control me? Dream on." I could practically imagine his arrogant expression, even through the solid wood of the door. "Clara, you're the best. Only you have stayed by my side through everything. I've poured my heart out to him for 10 years, and I can't compete with a girl who came back after disappearing for a decade? Is this the so-called power of first love?" After a while, the noise outside finally stopped. The next evening, Leo took me to our usual bar, and once again, we ran into the ever-present Julian. What a small world. Today, he had his usual aloof and arrogant demeanor back, as if the crying drunkard outside my door last night had been a completely different person. He sat across from us, his hand pointedly intertwined with Clara's in a challenging manner. Sobered up now, I see, Leo teased, casting a cool glance at him. Clara looked at me and squeezed Julian's hand. Sorry, Alara. Julian and I had a bit of a disagreement last night, and to get back at me, well, I hope you aren't upset about it. I swirled the juice in my glass, offering a faint smile. It's fine. It's not your fault you can't control him. Just try to keep a better eye on him next time. Clara's face stiffened, and she looked to Julian for help. He stroked her head comfortingly and then pulled a necklace from his pocket. It was a simple, even slightly worn-looking silver chain with a small blue crystal pendant in the middle. Clara, I've always carried the necklace you gave me with me. Seeing that necklace, my head suddenly exploded with pain. Julian noticed my expression immediately, his eyes lighting up with a cruel glee. Painful memories rushed back in a torrent. Not long ago, Julian and I had been on a rare private date. I was pointing at the beautiful view across the lake, urging him to look, but he was just absent-mindedly fiddling with his phone. Irritated, I had tried to snatch his phone away, and he had yelled at me. While you're enjoying the view and living in luxury, don't you know that some people are still out there suffering? At the time, I didn't realize he was talking about Clara. In our scuffle, the necklace he was wearing fell from his neck and into the lake. Julian's face had suddenly gone ice cold, and I even saw a hideous, hateful look on his face. He ordered me to get into the lake and fetch it myself, or he would hate me and never see me again. I was terrified, then consumed by an extreme fear, not knowing what terrible crime I had just committed. The cold winter wind blew through my clothes, chilling me to the bone. My hands were reddened and soaked by the icy lake water, my legs trembling uncontrollably, terrified of slipping into the deeper part of the water. And Julian? He just stood there on the clean shore, looking at me as if I were a complete stranger. After I finally found it and returned home, I came down with a high fever that lasted for 3 days. He didn't come to see me once. He just sent a single text message. I forgive you. The scenes flashed through my mind, and the headache was excruciating. Alara, do you remember me? It was Julian's voice, full of excitement. Suddenly, Leo launched himself across the table and hit him with a solid punch. Clara cried out in surprise. Can you stop provoking her? Do you even have a shred of conscience left? Leo yelled before helping me get home. I remember now. I remember everything. In the early hours of the morning, I heard a car pulling up outside, followed by the frantic ringing of my doorbell. This time, I opened the door. Julian stood there, reeking of alcohol and drenched from the rain, his face bruised and swollen. The car parked crookedly at the curb looked like it had been in a collision. His forehead was wrapped in a bandage with blood seeping through it, and he looked utterly miserable. It was a stark contrast to his usual meticulously put-together self. Julian loved cleanliness. He was always obsessed with his attire. The latest designer clothes, the trendiest shoes and watches, his hair always thoughtfully styled. We used to jokingly say he was more meticulous than a girl, more of a poster boy for the rich than any of us. Julian would usually just stay quiet like a teenager whose secret pride had just been poked. Yes, Julian had so much pride. In every single one of our arguments, I was the one who ended up begging for reconciliation like a dog. He would then smugly pat my head, as if he were bestowing upon me some great favor, but now he stumbled away from Clara's supporting grasp and staggered towards me. Alara, he slurred, his eyes pleading, can you love me again? His acting was so convincing it almost fooled me. A cold, bitter smile surfaced in my heart. Making me regain my memories was the biggest mistake you ever made, Julian. The scene from the day I lost my memory was now crystal clear in my mind. Hearing about Clara's return had left me deeply conflicted. I had always felt that Clara's place in Julian's heart was extraordinary, but I had comforted myself, telling myself that I had been with him for 10 years. With so many women coming and going around him, I was the only one he allowed to stay by his side. I had to be special, right? Somewhat drunk from my birthday celebration, I had decided to find Julian and ask him if 10 years of sincerity could finally earn me a promise in return. Then, around a corner, I saw 2 figures embracing tightly. A petite girl was held in Julian's arms, sobbing softly. Julian, I know you already have someone by your side. I shouldn't have come back, but In the next second, Julian kissed her, silencing her words. I clenched my fists, my nails digging so deep into my palms that they drew blood. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. Clara, you've been my true love all along, he had murmured against her lips. When I was poor, when everyone called me a bastard, only you stayed with me. My current friends, they're only with me because of my apparent rich kid status. If they knew I was just an illegitimate child, they'd trample me into the mud. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling with emotion. How can a heart not warm up after 10 years of devotion? When Julian first transferred to our school, Ben and Leo didn't even know who he was. A few cocky upperclassmen were bullying him, calling him a hick, and it was Ben and Leo who had intervened. Since then, the three of us had taken Julian everywhere, helping him integrate into our circle. And now it turns out he thought we were only using him to elevate ourselves? And what about Alara? Clara's tear-streaked face was raised with hope. Are you telling me you don't like her at all? My breath hitched, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed in a vice. Julian paused for a moment before speaking. I admit I don't dislike her, but she ultimately doesn't understand the real me. She pursues me because our family conditions are comparable. So why don't you explain it to her? The actual person in charge of my father's company is that woman who hates me. She'll only leave the company to her own son, Simon. My dad is forcing me to be with Alara because she's an only child, and it will be easy to use her family's influence to secure my position. So, do you think I've had it easy these 10 years while you were out there suffering? My heart felt like it had been plunged into an ice cave. So much for his pride, so much for his circumstances. Then what am I supposed to do now? Clara had asked. My dad has been pressuring me to propose to her, or he'll cut off all my cards. But Clara, trust me, I'll figure something out. Julian, don't get Alara upset right now. I'm okay with a little discomfort as long as we can be together in the end. I couldn't bear to listen to any more of their sweet talk. Any more, and I felt like I would throw up. Stumbling away in a daze, I didn't see the warning sign for the road construction and fell right into the open sewer drain. Julian, thank you for stirring me up these past few weeks, I said to the pathetic man at my door. You wanted me to remember you, right? Well, congratulations, you succeeded. But now you should be prepared for the consequences. Alara, can you love me again? He slurred again, making me feel sick. I slapped him hard across the face. I hit him so hard that my hands started to go numb. Julian was shocked into a state of near sobriety. Who do you think you are hitting people? Clara rushed up and pointed a finger at me. I slapped her hard, too. Now both of my hands were numb, but I felt an immense sense of satisfaction. I couldn't squeeze out any tears, so I just buried my head in my hands and started to vent. Julian, I remember you now. But why did you bring another woman to my house? Is Clara your girlfriend? Then what am I? If you have the guts, break up with me right now, and I'll respect you as a man. Julian, fighting off his drunken confusion, helped me up. Alara, it's good that you remember. And I told you before, I just see Clara as my sister. I looked at the jealous, fuming Clara and let out a long, drawn-out, oh. Oh, I must have misunderstood. Don't worry, I said, smiling sweetly. I'll be sure to treat your sister well. The next day, I arranged a meal for our two families to meet, and I specifically asked Julian to bring Clara along. During the meal, Julian's dad, Mr. Croft, was overly attentive to me. Meanwhile, Clara was sidelined, tugging at Julian's sleeve pitifully. Clara, why are you tugging on Julian's sleeve? If there's something urgent, you can just tell me, I said brightly. As soon as I spoke, the entire table fell silent. Mr. Croft glared at Clara harshly. No manners. Alara, you need to be more mindful of who you befriend. In time, you'll see that some people just aren't worth your time. Clara's eyes welled up with tears, and she gave Julian's brother Simon a quick, almost imperceptible glance. I caught it. Something unusual was going on, and some of my suspicions were being confirmed. It seemed Leo's information had been spot on. Mr. Croft then began hinting about the importance of my relationship with Julian. I responded jokingly, Uncle Ethan, I'm getting exhausted from chasing someone. if he doesn't make a move soon. I'm thinking of giving up. Mr. Croft looked pointedly at Julian, and for a moment, the usually proud Julian lowered his head reluctantly. Within a few days, Leo told me that Julian was planning to propose. I hired a renowned private investigator to monitor Julian and Clara 24/7. Just the day before the planned proposal, I got news that they were meeting secretly. When I rushed over to the cafe, Clara was leaning close to Julian, feeding him a spoonful of dessert. "You two!" I roared from the doorway, drawing the attention of the entire cafe. Julian just frowned slightly. "Ilara, you're overthinking things." He didn't even finish his sentence before I threw my cup of hot coffee at them. Clara screamed in pain as the liquid splashed on her. "You're about to get engaged to me and you're cheating behind my back? I'm telling Uncle Ethan." By then, some of the onlookers had already started filming with their phones. Clara frantically tried to cover her face. My last words clearly made Julian nervous. He finally stood up. I turned, walked out, and drove off, ignoring him as he chased after me. I tearfully recounted the entire scene to Mr. Croft. "Uncle Ethan, it seems Julian's heart isn't with me. I think I should break up with him." A breathless Julian burst through the door just then, meeting his father's icy stare. He got slapped hard across the face again. "Ilara, rest assured," Mr. Croft told me. "I believe Julian just has poor boundaries with his friends. I will educate him properly." That night, Julian actually stood outside my house holding a bouquet of flowers. What else could I do? Of course I forgave him. After all, his swollen face shouldn't go to waste. "Ilara, I feel like you've changed," he said later, scrutinizing me. "Yes, I have changed. I fell and got my brain back. Clara's back and now she's picking on me, saying I've changed?" I pretended to still be jealous. Julian furrowed his brow. "Clara has had a tough life. I just see her as a sister and I care for her a little more because of it. Anyway, let's not talk about this. How about dinner tomorrow night? I'll send you the address later." I agreed gladly. Tomorrow night, there was going to be a very good show. I was so excited, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to sleep. Before heading out, I put on heavy makeup and dressed in all black. The hotel entrance was decked out with bouquets of red roses and massive heart-shaped decorations. It did look pretty romantic at first glance. I made eye contact with Leo across the room, and he gave me a subtle nod. I felt completely assured. I walked up gracefully and looked right into Julian's eyes as he held out another bouquet to me. Facing this man I had chased for 10 years, my heart was perfectly calm. All the love I had once felt for him had evaporated the moment I saw his true nature. It was so disgusting, having Clara in his heart while looking down on me and still having the audacity to propose. So this is what he called self-respect. I saw Clara standing behind Julian, and I gave her a provocative smile. Her face turned pale, and a flash of jealousy crossed her eyes. "Julian, seeing that you're finally with Ilara, I'm genuinely happy for you," she said, her voice choking up. "Really happy, aren't we?" "So happy you're about to cry," I muttered under my breath. The romantic music started playing, and the large screen in the center of the banquet hall came down. "Ilara, these are memories from our time together," Julian started to say, but he stopped dead in his tracks before he could finish. He stared at the screen intently. Clara, shocked, followed his gaze, and her face changed dramatically. Images of Clara living it up in France with a series of different men flashed across the screen. In the photos, she was smiling broadly, nestled in a man's arms, or flipping the bird at the camera. The hall erupted in an uproar. With each passing picture, Julian's face grew darker and darker until the last photo, of Clara and his own brother Simon entering a hotel together, was shown. He finally broke. "Clara, you've been lying to me all along." The surrounding audience, all curious onlookers, started pointing and whispering. "Wow, she looks so pure on the outside, but who knew she was like this behind closed doors?" Julian sure treated her like a treasure. Screwing around with her lover's brother? That's wild. I always thought Julian was blind. Ilara chased after him for 10 years. Clara rushed onto the stage, screaming uncontrollably. "No, it's not like that. Stop it. Turn it off now." Julian, his eyes bloodshot, slowly walked forward and grabbed her chin. The pictures are all right here, Clara. Aren't you going to tell the truth? Clara turned her head, struggling. This is my private matter. Why should I have to tell you anything? The sound of his slap echoed through the room. It was delightful. Didn't you say you had a tough time abroad? Didn't you say your heart was only for me? He seethed. Clara covered her face, playing dumb. I glanced at her and then turned to Julian. If she won't speak, I'll do a good deed and tell you. After you were taken in by your father, Clara blackmailed him with your identity as an illegitimate child to get money to study abroad. Julian looked at Clara in disbelief. It's a pity, I continued, my voice low and clear. While you were here worrying about her suffering, she was busy partying it up in France. She didn't achieve anything substantial, so when your brother Simon offered her more money to come back, she quickly returned. Simon didn't want you to connect with my family's influence, so he arranged for Clara to come back and tie you down. Oh, and she even dreamed of becoming your sister-in-law after things settled. She's aiming for the powerful Simon, not you, a mere illegitimate child. I whispered the last part directly to him. Julian stared at me as if he had been struck by lightning, his former pride completely shattered. Since when did you know all this? Ignoring his question, I turned and walked away. He grabbed my arm and I shook him off vigorously. Julian, let's just say the past 10 years of my life went to the dogs. Let's say I finally paid the price for my foolish heart. Now you can get lost. Lying in bed that night, the wind and rain roared outside my window. My mood was as complex as the weather. Just after thanking Leo over the phone for his help, I heard a knock at the door. It was Julian, drenched from head to toe. His soaked hair was a mess, making him look very pitiful. Ilara, I didn't mean to hurt you. He reached out his hand as if he wanted to touch my face. I'm sorry, can you? I took a sharp step back and his hand hung in the air, confused and helpless. Julian, you're despicable, I said, my voice as cold as ice. Didn't you always look down on me? Didn't you have that high and mighty pride? I will not fall for someone like you anymore. I answered him firmly, word by word, watching as the last flicker of light in his eyes slowly faded. What did you treat me like? A dog you could summon and dismiss at will? A tool to prove your own charm? For 10 years, you loved Clara while keeping me around. Are you insane? Now that you've turned yourself into this pathetic mess, who are you pretending to be affectionate for? The cold words poured out of my mouth, just as they used to pour from his. A bitter smile appeared on his lips, and the tears he had been holding back finally fell. He staggered and fell to the ground as fragile as a broken doll. After a long time, he struggled to speak. Before I was brought to my father's home, I was a bastard that everyone said had cursed his own mother to death, my father unknown. Only Clara was willing to be friends with me. Ilara, you're so dazzling. The better you treated me, the more scared I got. I was afraid you only loved the identity you thought I had. My dad forced me to find a way to be with you, but I hated being manipulated. I hated you rich folks who decide other people's lives so freely. I thought I would never fall for a pampered princess like you, but then, when I seriously looked at you that day, at the proposal, I genuinely hoped you'd say yes. I didn't want to listen to any more of it, so I cut him off. Julian, do you know when I first saw you? It was 10 years ago, the day you had just moved in. I was trying to find my runaway kitten, and I unknowingly wandered to your front door. I heard your father's wife yelling, "What's the meaning of bringing that woman's bastard here? I'm warning you, this house is only for my son, Simon. It's fine to give him a bite to eat, but nothing else." And amidst the quarreling, I saw a skinny little boy, hugging his knees, crouching in a corner. You looked so handsome, but your eyes were filled with tears, dropping one by one. My kitten jumped out from behind you and rubbed against your pants. You blinked your eyes and gently started petting the kitten. You whispered, "Do you know? I have no family left. Grandma said men shouldn't cry, but she's gone now. There's no one left to love me. Never again." The sobs of that stubborn little boy stirred something in my heart. From that moment, I inexplicably felt something for you. I never loved you because of our matching family statuses. Everyone in the world saw my genuine heart except you. You were the one who was blind. You were the one who was foolish, unable to see other people's true feelings. I pushed him out the door. The rain poured down on his face, and it was hard to tell if it was all rain or if it was mixed with his tears. Julian, I said before closing the door for the last time, I hope we never meet again. In just a few days, Julian's family dropped a bombshell on the business world. Julian's brother, Simon, had become the new head of the company. Julian didn't even get any shares. Leo told me that Simon had only left Julian a small trust fund. The news caused a stir, and rumors spread like wildfire. Leo drove me past the company's entrance one afternoon, where we saw a group of reporters surrounding Simon and Julian. Julian looked more haggard than ever, so thin he seemed like a gust of wind could knock him over. Suddenly, a girl pushed her way to the front. It was Clara. "Simon, you promised me money! You jerk! Give me the money!" Simon, unlike his brother, was not so easy to handle. He gave a signal to the lawyer standing next to him, his expression completely blank. "Miss Clara, we have already called the police regarding your actions. We will be pressing charges for extortion against you." Clara began to panic and rushed over to Julian. "Julian, say something, please, help me!" Julian only pushed her away with disgust and walked off like a lifeless shell. 2 security guards restrained Clara as she tried to escape. She slumped to the ground, wailing, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I lost interest in watching the drama unfold and rolled up the car window. "Let's go, Leo. You've helped me so much through all this. I have to treat you to a big meal." "No need to be so polite with me," he said, half joking. "If you're really that grateful, you could always marry me instead." I glared at him playfully and felt an indescribable sense of relief wash over me. Sitting alone on the plane, waiting for takeoff, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Ben had just texted me, calling me heartless for not telling any of them that I was going abroad for my studies. Besides my parents, I hadn't told a soul. He also told me that Julian had fallen into a deep depression and was being treated at home. No one had seen him come out for a long time. Meanwhile, Simon had acted ruthlessly, immediately pressing charges and sending Clara to jail. These pieces of news lingered in my mind for only a moment, like listening to a story about people I didn't know. Once heard, it was forgotten. Feeling drowsy, I closed my eyes. A moment later, a soft blanket was laid over me. I opened my eyes. "How come it's you?" "Fancy seeing you here, Alara," a warm voice said. A smile spread across Leo's face, and his deep onyx eyes softened as he looked at me.